Purposes for assessment. People most often use language assessment to collect two kinds of data. One is connected with the learning of languages, with assessing the degree of progress towards a learning goal. These purposes are important in school and other educational settings, and so the assessment used to collect the data come under the heading of educational assessment. Educational language assessment usually takes place within language programs. The, proce- the procedures are usually based on content that has been or will be taught, are frequently developed and carried out by teachers, and can often be flexible, allowing for the use of observational techniques, watching and recording what learners do, portfolios, collection of learning's work, self-assessment, learners making judgment about their own abilities, and informal tests or quizzes, as well as formal tests administered under more strictly controlled conditions. The second kinds of information is connected with whether or not a person's language ability is adequate to satisfy some predetermined need or standard. This is known as proficiency assessment. The assessment of language proficiency is usually connected to the language and related skills that are needed to carry out on a job, study academic subject, or fulfill other kinds of roles. Because the focus is not on what the assessee has been taught, this kind of assessment is less likely to be carried out by teacher and more likely to involve formal tests administered under controlled, uniform, standardized conditions and produced by national or international agencies. Proficiency assessment are distinct from educational assessment because they do not center on learning processes on the outcomes of a particular course of study. Proficiency assessment are connected with a person's current functionality rather than with their learning, what the assessee can accomplish through their use of language now, not how they reach this point or how long it might take them to arrive at a higher level of ability. In proficiency assessment, the issue is whether or not the person being assessed has sufficient language ability to satisfy center needs. Proficiency assessments are often used for gatekeeping decisions in immigrations, access to employment, and educational opportunities. This may relate to a relatively specific purpose, such as using the language in leading groups of tourists around the city, working as a dentist, steering ship in international waters, or studying marketing at a university. Or it may be for less specialized or less clearly definable general purposes that might apply to a very wide range of language users. Thus, that many language users may need to carry out at some point might include reserving a room in a hotel or guest house, feeling informed with basic personal information, buying food, following television news program, reading articles in popular magazine, or holding conversations about personal experiences. Educational assessment in teaching and learning. Assessment can take place at different stages during the learning process. Before they begin a course in a new language, we may be interested in the learner's aptitude for language learning, their potential to learn, although we know that almost anyone can learn a foreign language. Given the time and motivation, some people may be predisposed to make faster progress than others. A sport coach looking for someone with the potential to be a good basketball player may try to find someone who is tall and able to jump high, with quicker action, good coordination, and a competitive spirit. In the same in the same way, some selective language training programs, such as those organized by the military, need to pick from a large group of applicants those with the greatest potential to learn a language quickly. The Premier Language Aptitude Battery, Premier et al. 2004, for example, set out to identify as potential language learners individuals with a good memory for word shape, and sounds who are good at discriminating between similar sounds, good at identifying grammatical patterns, and who have an interest in other cultures. Partly because motivation is now widely regarded as more important than aptitude is in shaping language learning success, and partly because most language courses cater for learners who already have some knowledge of a language. Aptitude tests are not as widely used as they used to be. It is more often the case that course providers wish to find out how much of the content of the course language learners already know before they begin, or how much they have learned by the end. In this case, assessment may be prognostic, looking forward to the content plan for the course and deciding on opportunities, or concerned with achievement, looking back to what the learners have been taught to find how much they have absorbed and what might need to be covered again. Aptitude and prognostic assessment are used to inform selection decisions, deciding which learners might require language courses or choosing those most likely to succeed. They may also be used to inform placement decisions about which of the available classes best match each learner's needs. During a course, achievement assessment as progress tests might be used to gain the ongoing improvement made by learners. At the end of the course, as exit tests, they are often used in making I pass or fail decisions or in assigning grades. In using achievement assessment, the teacher may be interested in obtaining detailed diagnostic information about which part of the materials the learners have taken in and which part will need more work. In assessing learning, a distinction is often made between more formative uses of assessment that immediately guide what teacher and learners will do next and more summative uses, which focus on a retrospective picture of what has been learned. Another way of expressing this distinction is to call the former assessment of learning and to construct this with assessment of learning Black and William 1998. In other words, in Regents 1998 term summative assessment audits learning, formative assessment informs it. An example of the use of formative and diagnostic assessment would be a teacher observing that some students are having difficulty in distinguishing between for and sin when talking about time in English. The teacher might decide to intervene by asking questions and providing examples to help build their understanding of the distinction. This kind of assessment informs learning because the teacher is able to adjust the content of her classes to take account of the student performance. The focus is on what should happen next in the classroom to bring about learning. An example of a more summative assessment would be end of year test based on the topics taught during the year. This test audits learning by providing evidence of what the students have learned and how well they have met the course objective. The focus is on finding out how much learning has happened. Like the formative assessment described above, such a test might include questions dealing with specific points of grammar, such as the for or seen distinction found in the diagnostic test, but the result may not be available until the school year has finished and there is no immediate opportunity to work on improving performance as all the students have left. In this case, the result might be used for program evaluation or judgment about the effectiveness of the language course rather than on the abilities of individual learners. Gaining an awareness of how well the learners are progressing is, of course, easiest when the learners are also involved and interested in the process and share their insight with their teacher. Good learners set themselves targets, think about how best to learn, trying out and evaluating new techniques, and often reflect on their own progress toward their goals. Self-assessment and peer assessment, in which learners assess their own and each other performance, have emerged as powerful means of engaging learners in these processes and helping them to take more control of their own learning. Of course, Teaching can become more challenging when the learners do not want to learn or unwilling to communicate. This brings us to other reason for using assessment, motivating learners because assessment are often associated with rewards, access to opportunities such as courses or job, prize, certificates, grades, praise, and attention from the teacher. They can serve as a powerful motivation for learners. However, using assessment in this way is risky and potentially very damaging. In some cases, it can actually have a negative effect on a learner's motivation. The learners who repeatedly fails to gain good grades or pass tests will sooner or later become frustrated, conclude the language learning is not worth the effort and give up even trying to learn. Formative diagnostic assessment by providing helpful feedback, formation of a performance that can show the learners what he or she to do in order to improve. Promises to guide learners in their studies. However, for many learners, especially those in formal schooling, success on tests, especially major proficiency tests, may come to seem more important than successful communication in the language they are learning. Where this happens, the content of the test can take over from the official curriculum and learning goals that are not covered on the test may get push aside and ignore. Teacher may teach and student may try to learn only the material that they think will be accessed. The changes in teaching and learning that may come about in response to an upcoming test are known as watchback, and this has emerged as an important area of language assessment research. Feedback and watchback are discussed in more detail in Module 4. The occasional assessment on the one hand, particularly formative assessment and proficiency assessment on the other, are often seen as distinct, even in compatible areas of specialization conducted by different people employing different techniques, informed by different theories, and embracing different values. For this reason, they are often treated separately, and the relationship between them ranges from mutual differences to sometimes hated conflict. This conflict is most often played out in the field of summative assessment, where the role of the teacher as the facilitator of learners. The world of formative assessment comes up against the need to account for what has been learned in terms of the general standards set by employers, governments, or other external agencies. The words of summative assessment and proficiency assessment. Although the difference between what teachers do in the classroom and the large-scale testing are important, there is also a good deal in common between them. To be effective, both depend above all on well-crafted questions or other techniques that will provide useful evidence of learners' abilities. Task type used in large-scale tests can be adapted for use in the classroom, while innovative ideas first tried out in class can find their way into, more formal assessment. Both classroom assessment and large-scale tests can be improved by careful and critical review and through experience. The result from an assessment on one occasional innovatively point of improvement to be made the next time it is used. Achieving good quality in both requires collective and systematic effort. Ways of checking and improving language assessment are described in Module 3 and 4. Perhaps the strongest argument for treating assessment in the classroom and in the examination hall in the same book is that in a healthy educational system, both should work together. If teachers understand how tests work, they will be more effective at preparing the student to take examination. On the other hand, as Alderson 1999 remarked, testing is too important to be left to testers. It is essential that educational tests should reflect the curriculum and the needs and interests of learners. Teachers are familiar with the learners and with the reality of how the curriculum is delivered in practice. They are therefore well placed to judge the content of tests and to hold the test maker to account.